It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. Before we get started, please hit that share button so we can share and educate more patriots around the country. Today, we start in Coconut Creek, Florida, where a white middle schooler is recovering after being attacked in the school parking lot by 5 black students who yelled, quote, "brown power," unquote, and this is what you get for slavery, while they beat him up.
So this actually happened at Coconut Creek Recreation Center, which is actually right near the Lions Creek Middle School. And basically before school starts, that's where a lot of the kids go. It's kind of where they gather. And so at the community center itself, there were 5 young students between the ages of 11 and 15. And this is reportedly, they charged 4 white students who were ages 11 to 12. And they were shouting phrases such as, "It's opposite day," and "brown power," and this is while they punched and then kicked the victims.
He's scared to go back to school, obviously, around the kids are in the same class in the hallways.
The parent of an alleged attack victim telling 7 News his son was targeted because of the color of his skin. Coconut Creek police say this attack was racially provoked and carried out by 5 fellow students at Lions Creek Middle School. The parent telling 7 News it all unfolded Wednesday just before school outside the North Recreation Complex.
He got out of the car, I think he heard some noises and some kids started saying, "We're gonna get revenge on you for what you did in the past," and he got jumped. They hit him and ran off to some other kids and kept going.
His son just one of 4 students who tell police they were approached by the group of kids yelling, "You are white." They were then allegedly tackled and beaten with sticks and cable cords as they heard things like "it's opposites day" and "brown power."
It's concerning that what's going on in the school and they don't really seem to be doing much about it, and the steps they take don't really protect the kids.
I guess I was a little distracted there because in the back of that video you saw a bunch of kids kind of falling down, and maybe the news missed that little bit. But either way, to hear that, you know, kids just right before school are getting attacked, I guess, I don't know, is it a good thing that it wasn't happening in the school? I'm not even sure anymore. But the simple fact that it was them saying phrases such as "brown power" or "it's opposite day," I guess I always wonder, where are these kids getting these ideas? Why is it that this is happening?
And
there?
The answer is the school. I mean, what that dad said is exactly correct. These are schools that have adopted critical race theory, hook, line, and sinker. These are schools that have made everything about race. And so these kids now have been grown up with a sense of entitlement. I'm talking about the perpetrators here, that they're victims, that they've been destroyed, that white culture, including kids their age, are completely complicit in holding African Americans down. And this is what they've been fed since they started going to school. Now it's turned violent, and as the dad said, the school doesn't really seem all that interested in talking about it. Well, I can tell you what would have happened. If 4 white kids did this to a black kid, you would be talking about it, public schools. You would make this the focus of education in that school for the next 5 years at the expense of everything else. But because it's the unfortunate victims were white, not minority, and they were innocent minority kids demanding the power to beat the crap out of somebody who apparently your ancestors must have beat their family members up. This is what happens when you racialize a classroom, this room. It's bad for everybody. Give the police major kudos, because I've seen stories like this, maybe not as bad as this, where they refuse to use the hate crime designation because they're minorities, blah, 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 but they used it in these charges against those kids. That's serious, and it's what it needs to be.
And it is fascinating because you have to remember this is Broward County, Florida, and we remember Broward County. So the 5 students reportedly have been charged with battery and prejudice while committing battery. And so it elevates the charges that they have from just being misdemeanors to felonies because it is with prejudice. And the races of these 5 have been described as both black and white, most with Hispanic surnames.
So in other words, for the sake of this, it's the white Hispanic phenomenon, right? You may remember, I believe his name was Hernandez, the guy who tailed an African-American kid, got into a fight and shot him. We learned the term white Hispanic, right? When Hispanic people do bad things, that's the white Hispanic. When brown-skinned or normal Hispanics do things, they're actually Hispanic. So I love how the media seems to be, could be wrong about this, the story's a little ambiguous, but the suggestion seems to be that these kids who are all shouting brown power, some of them may have been, according to the school, white. By that, they have Hispanic names. Notice the little trick there. But look, go a little bit further into the story.
Well, the school's principal had reportedly sent out a robocall to the parents that informed them of actually what happened, and Broward County Public Schools put out a statement classifying the attacks as an off-campus incident, even though it's...
They were on the way to school.
I guess, yes. Now, apparently, you know, like the parent of the victim, you had heard said how this shouldn't have happened and none of this should be happening, and basically it's his kid now is scared to go back to school, and this is happening across the nation in terms of kids being scared to go to school. It's for all different reasons, but it's all school,
which is
they're scared to go back to.
Which is exactly what the schools want. They want white kids afraid. They want black kids empowered. They want white kids guilty and afraid. Don't forget this paragraph. Another alleged victim told WTVJ that he was attacked right after he had been dropped off at the center. The groups, I know we got this earlier part, but I want to repeat this. The group of students allegedly ran over to jump him and other classmates. He said they were yelling racial slurs and other phrases that made him believe the attack was for his solely being white. After they jumped me, they said this is like revenge for what they did in the 1700s for slavery. Now that's a specific racist claim that they learned in the public schools. That's a certain way of seeing and thinking that you blame the teachers for. These teachers, honestly, could very well be charged with race hate for monolithically teaching these kids what they needed to go out and start hurting people.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
Now, this next incident actually happened on school property. We have a substitute teacher at a middle school in the Dallas area had his blood drawn on him after a chair throwing incident, and this occurred actually in March. Now, at DeSoto Independent School District, they canceled all their classes on that Friday of the incident and then sent the kids on spring break just a little early. There was a video from DeSoto West Middle School that shows a chair being thrown at a 73-year-old Larry Brumfield, and it appeared to hit him in the side of the head, and then he threw two chairs back, and you know, he goes to sit down because he's bleeding, and so just watch.
I didn't think of throwing chairs. What the hell?
Well, there's that. There's actually another video showing a different angle that shows it actually a little bit better.
Oh, shit! Y'all not chairs! He just threw a chair!
Now, Brumfield had said, fortunately, I saw it out of my peripheral vision. It hit my leg, and my head. He's talking about the chair. It didn't hurt as much, but I felt the blood on my face. I picked it up and threw it back at him. Now, Brumfield said the teen who threw the chair, you can see from actually the other angle in another video, that kid who threw the chair wasn't even assigned to his class. And so what was happening is Brumfield was trying to get this kid to leave the class, and the kid refused to leave.
You know, you ask yourself, what would people have thought instead of throwing a chair? That teacher who happened to be African American wandered over that kid and slapped him or punched him or dragged him out violently out of the classroom. I mean, when you start being the recipients of that kind of violence, a plastic metal chair thrown up against your face, at what point do you defend yourself? Now, again, it's a lot less complicated because you had black teacher, black student. But what if that was a white teacher? I mean, what is so disturbing about what we're going through as a country right now, there should be one answer for this. It's wrong, period. And we shouldn't be parsing and pretending and acting like we saw in the first story. You know, well, if it's certain kind of kids engaged in this behavior, maybe we'll use the words, maybe we won't. Maybe the school's not going to talk about it much if it's black kids on the violent side of things, and as much as they would if they were white kids doing that kind of stuff. There's one answer to all of this. And until we get back to this one answer, we are no longer fighting racism, we are contributing to it. And that one answer is, it's wrong where it's done, wherever it's done, by whomever it's done, racially, period. Whenever it's done, acts like violence of violence, they're wrong. And you're not going to get punished more or less because you're male or female. You're not going to get punished more or less because you're black or you're white or anything else. Once we get back as a country to it's wrong in every way, for all reasons, there will be no racial harmony in this country. And it's the left who wants to parse these things to make them much more worse for whites and much less impactful for minorities.
Well, paramedics were called to the school, according to the DeSoto ISD representative, and that same representative actually did say that the students had attacked Brumfield first, and that's going to make a huge difference moving forward as to whether or not charges are filed against him and what happens with the kid. The district had refused to comment further, of course, regarding what sparked the incident and whether police had detained any of the students or whether any students actually may be punished. And maybe it is one of those brush it under the rug, look the other way, pretend it never happened. And of course, in the standard statement that is provided by the school, students may have witnessed and filmed an assault that took place in a classroom on a district campus. The district makes clear that it does not condone or tolerate the behavior that took place in the incident, and that all parties will be held accountable to the full extent of the district's ability to address the matter. Sure, of course it will. Now, school staff actually had to go in on that Friday before the spring break, even though the kids didn't have to go in, but basically, the teachers got hauled in, and they had to review the district policies, and basically were told that when students returned from spring break, every school was to have staff monitoring hallways and common areas, and students were not allowed to use cell phones, earbuds, or headphones during the school day, which makes me think then that may also have contributed to why the kids got all rowdy in the classroom.
How about this? Go back to my earlier comment. How about stop racializing discipline? It is not racist to discipline kids, especially if they're minority kids, right? I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with the disciplining of white kids. White kids do bad things, they should pay. So should the other kids. And we got to thank Barack Obama for this, right? You remember how he racialized the system with his dear colleague letter about how blacks are more likely to get disciplined in inner city schools than whites in rural schools, and therefore the whole system is racism. Because here's the thing. If you don't have discipline for all kids in a public school, you have no learning environment, period. Stop racializing discipline. If it happens to be in inner city kids, where the kids are engaging in the most violence, then guess what? They need the most discipline. Loosening up the discipline or telling teachers you can't discipline kids because they're black, get ready for a lot more chairs being thrown.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Well, this final story actually isn't about a physical beating. Kind of. It's actually about a man who beat a woman in swimming. So it was a physical task, but there was no actual contact. Now, we, of course, are talking about the one, the only Leah/Will Thomas, who is a biological male and said, you know what, I'm not that good of a swimmer on the male team, so why not just join the women's team and crush all the women? And that's exactly what has been happening all season long. And hey, high praise. NCAA giving you all the praise there for beating the women. And so Leah / Will, has been racing in a bunch of different of the swim distances and crushed the 500, and now that's where all the praise comes in. But in the 200, Thomas had raced it and ended up tying for 5th because you can't make it look too easy. I mean, you can't be winning every single race by, I can't even, my arms are too short to make the distance that he was winning by. So he ended up tying for 5th with Riley Gaines of the University of Kentucky. And so, as you can see there, Leah's out in front and Riley's off to the side. And you can't read what it says on her trophy, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, basically what happened during that award ceremony was, Leah's got all the attention, and so we got to give the attention to Leah, and so then the attention is paid to Leah, and so attention on Leah. And Riley, who again tied for 5th, was told, you know what, can you just stand over there and just hold this 6th place trophy?
When I kind of questioned it, I asked him, is there a reason why you're giving Leah the trophy? He just explained to me that we're giving it in chronological order, and I questioned him again, what does that mean? We tied, what are we being chronological about? And he kind of blatantly said, we're just going to give the trophy to Leah. We respect and admire your swim, but Leah needs to hold the trophy.
In other words,
so
shut up, don't
I was
ask
baffled,
questions.
really.
Yeah.
Right, I was shocked, and I know all the other swimmers who were standing by and listening to this were also shocked, and I was standing right next to Leah, and she heard it all, and so it was kind of just really baffling that this could happen. And I know the NCAA wasn't prepared for a situation like this, which just tells me when they were faced with it, they protected such a small minority and turned their back on, what the organization in Title IX really stands for.
And there you have it. That's the response from the NCAA, from the President of the United States, from all the liberal progressives pushing this garbage, all the non-turf feminists out there. We're giving Leah the trophy. Leah's going to hold the trophy, period. That's all there is to it. No discussion, no fairness. Leah is our star. Leah, we're promoting. In other words, that whole swimming match was one big footnote to the grand story of transgender success. Your children, girls and boys, sacrificed on the altar of making a very, very small and confused constituency feel much better about themselves than perhaps they ought to.
And the fact that they said it was, chronological, which it wasn't. It also wasn't biological, because they decided to just, hey, let's just give it to the man. The interview continued with Tucker Carlson, with Riley, and she talked about how she's talked to many different NCAA swimmers, and she basically spoke on behalf of them without naming any of them, because what happens is all these girls are on scholarships, and they are being told behind the scenes from their coaches, from the athletic directors, from all the administration type folk in the athletic departments, shh, don't say anything, because they're probably threatening them. I mean, I can't say for sure, but they're probably threatening them that they will lose scholarship if they speak out on behalf of, actual biological women. And this whole story, when Gaines in another part, she was told by the NCAA, while being handed the 6th place trophy, don't worry, yours will be coming in the mail.
Hi everyone, I'm David Fiorazzo. While education content is always the primary focus of the Dr. Duke Show, before we go, let's leave you with a few other stories worthy of a comment or two. Let's start in Florida, where jury selection has been underway for the upcoming trial of the Parkland school shooter who killed 17 people back in 2018. Now, normally, jury selection wouldn't be interesting news. That is, until one prospect stunned the judge when she indicated why she couldn't serve on the jury. Take a look at this exchange.
So you said that there's dates in July that you're not available. What are those dates?
July 7th, July 4th, which is closed, and July 18th. But then again, I need to figure out something. I have my sugar daddy that I see every day.
I'm sorry?
My sugar daddy.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but
Well, I'm married and I have my sugar daddy.
Okay.
And I see him every day.
all right.
All right, so just to recap, the married mother with children said she could not serve on the jury because of her children's birthdays and because it prohibited her from getting a daily fix of her sugar daddy. Now, someone who is not her husband, by the way, needless to say, Miss Bristol wouldn't have to worry about upsetting her sugar daddy as the judge excused her from the trial. So, Duke and Katie, I have to go to you with this one. Does this bring up the topic of jury duty excuses? What are your thoughts?
I got that written down. Next time I get called for jury duty, ma'am, with all due respect, I got to visit my sugar daddy that day. If you get out of test, whatever, you get out of jury duty free, yeah. You get out of jury duty free, apparently.
I am very upset because I've never been called for jury duty. I voted. I assume I'm on the roll. They still have not found me. I have not been called, and I'm very upset, and have been since I was 18, because I am the only person I know of who wants to be called for jury duty.
All right.
It's true.
Well, you're unique, Katie. I think that's very rare.
Anyway,
we've got to keep moving. So we have to head to the University of Chicago, where the king of reliable sources, Mr. Potato Head himself, Brian Stelter, was asked to join a panel on disinformation and the erosion of democracy. What could go wrong? So what gave the conference a little extra fire was when a college freshman by the name of Christopher Phillips called out Stelter for CNN promoting disinformation just as badly as other networks, we think worse. But watch this brave young man.
You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax, they pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax, they smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist, and yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative?
I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch. But I understand that that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it.
Denial. Well, good for this young man. He's got a bright future. We need more people like him holding news organizations and their personalities and celebrities accountable. So finally, a new poll finds that Americans trust only one source for accurate reporting. I'm talking about a network that keeps their focus on the eye of the storm. Can you guess? Of course, I'm talking about the Weather Channel. YouGov's survey found a slim majority, 52% of Americans, trust the Weather Channel over Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and all the rest. The BBC came in second, followed by PBS, also known as Progressive BS. Now, on a political level, the poll found Democrats are most likely to look for information from broadcast TV news networks like the Big Three. Republicans are most likely to go to cable news first. So Duke and Katie, you guys do a lot of research and you get a lot of information. Where do you first go for news? Cable, networks, papers, social media? People want to know.
I like to go everywhere, but you just know what you can trust and not. And I thought that it was very interesting that that kid was brilliant, articulate,
yes.
And Stelter's argument was that's a right-wing narrative. So if indeed the truth is a right-wing narrative, then I'm happy to be a right-winger.
Amen.
I personally go to the Weather Channel because they get it right at least 3 out of 10 times, right? So it's
Twice
like
as much.
It's like being in baseball. If you hit the ball fair and you make it on base 3 out of 10 times, you're batting 300, you're doing good, you're like an all-star. The Weather Channel, you get it right some of the time, you're amazing, and everyone apparently trusts you. Everyone else, that just says how bad our actual news sources really are.
But PBS is the second most trusted?
BBC.
Unbelievable.
BBC?
BBC.
Yeah, that one gets me. They're worse than NBC. And that wraps up this show. For all of us at Freedom Project, including David, stay educated, my friends.